Myanmar, once a beacon of hope for democracy in Southeast Asia, has tragically descended into darkness. The military coup of February 2021 shattered the nation's fragile transition to civilian rule. Aung San Suu Kyi, the Nobel laureate and icon of democracy, was once again placed under house arrest. The world watched in horror as the junta unleashed a brutal crackdown on peaceful protesters, killing hundreds and imprisoning thousands more. The international community responded with swift condemnation. The United States, the European Union, and many other nations imposed sanctions on the military regime. Myanmar, once on a path to rejoining the global community, found itself increasingly isolated. The coup has also exacerbated existing ethnic tensions and fueled a humanitarian crisis. Millions of people are now in need of urgent assistance. China's interest in Myanmar is multifaceted and deeply rooted in geopolitics. Myanmar offers China a strategic corridor to the Indian Ocean, bypassing the congested Strait of Malacca. This access is vital for China's energy security, allowing a direct route for oil and gas imports from the Middle East and Africa. The deep-water port at Kyaukphyu, a Chinese-funded project in Myanmar, stands as a testament to this strategic ambition. Beyond energy, Myanmar holds significance for China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. China has invested heavily in infrastructure projects in Myanmar, including roads, railways, and pipelines. These projects aim to enhance connectivity and facilitate the flow of goods and resources. Myanmar's rich natural resources, including timber, jade, and minerals, are highly attractive to China's resource-hungry economy. Chinese companies have secured lucrative contracts in Myanmar's extractive industries, often facing accusations of exploitation and environmental degradation. Despite these concerns, China's economic footprint in Myanmar continues to grow, solidifying its position as the country's largest trading partner and a major investor. China's relationship with Myanmar presents a complex diplomatic challenge. Beijing seeks to maintain its influence and protect its strategic and economic interests. This requires engaging with the military junta, risking alienation and international criticism. China is wary of being seen as supporting a regime accused of human rights abuses. This delicate balancing act has led China to adopt a cautious and pragmatic approach. While condemning violence, Beijing refrains from imposing sanctions on the junta. Instead, China emphasizes stability and non-interference in Myanmar's affairs. Myanmar's economic reliance on China has grown significantly in recent years, particularly in the aftermath of the coup. As Western nations imposed sanctions and withdrew investments, China has become an even more indispensable economic partner for the isolated junta. This dependence has given Beijing considerable leverage over Naypyidaw, allowing it to secure favorable deals and advance its strategic interests. China is Myanmar's largest trading partner, accounting for a significant portion of its exports and imports. Key sectors of the Myanmar economy, such as natural gas, mining, and infrastructure, are heavily reliant on Chinese investment and expertise. The China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, a flagship project under the BRI, aims to further integrate Myanmar into China's economic orbit. Critics argue that Chinese investments in Myanmar often lack transparency and accountability, leading to environmental degradation, land grabbing, and exploitation of local communities. The coup has exacerbated these concerns as the junta, desperate for economic lifelines, has become even more beholden to China. The crisis in Myanmar has sent shockwaves throughout Southeast Asia, posing a significant challenge to ASEAN. The bloc, founded on principles of non-interference, has struggled to respond to the coup and ensuing violence. Indonesia and Malaysia have condemned the junta and called for Aung San Suu Kyi's release. They argue the crisis threatens ASEAN's credibility and efforts to promote democracy. However, Thailand and Cambodia have taken a more muted stance, reflecting their ties with China. This division hampers ASEAN's role in resolving the crisis. The five-point consensus, calling for dialogue and cessation of violence, remains unimplemented. The military coup in Myanmar has had a devastating impact on human rights in the country. The junta has unleashed a brutal crackdown on dissent, killing hundreds of peaceful protesters, imprisoning thousands more, and silencing independent media. Torture, arbitrary arrests, and enforced disappearances have become commonplace. The Rohingya Muslim minority, who have faced decades of persecution and discrimination in Myanmar, have been particularly vulnerable since the coup. The military, which carried out a brutal ethnic cleansing campaign against the Rohingya in 2017, has intensified its operations in Rakhine State, displacing thousands more people and committing further atrocities. The international community has condemned the human rights situation in Myanmar and called for an end to the violence. The UN Independent Investigative Mechanism for Myanmar, or IEMM, has gathered evidence of widespread and systematic human rights violations, including crimes against humanity and war crimes. The International Criminal Court, or ICC, is also investigating allegations of crimes against humanity committed against the Rohingya. The situation in Myanmar remains highly volatile and unpredictable, with several potential scenarios unfolding in the coming months and years. One possibility is that the military junta manages to consolidate its grip on power, crushing all forms of dissent and establishing a new authoritarian regime. This scenario would likely lead to continued human rights abuses, economic stagnation, and prolonged international isolation for Myanmar. Another scenario is that the resistance movement, led by pro-democracy activists, ethnic armed groups, and civil society organizations, gains momentum and poses a significant challenge to the junta's authority. This could lead to a protracted civil war, further destabilizing the country and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. A third possibility is that external actors, such as China, ASEAN, or the United Nations, play a more active role in mediating a political solution. This would require the junta to engage in meaningful dialogue with the opposition and agree to a roadmap for a return to democracy. The outcome of the crisis in Myanmar will have profound implications, not only for the country itself, but also for the wider region and the international community. The visit of Myanmar's embattled leader to China marks a significant development in the evolving geopolitical landscape. It underscores the growing rivalry between China and the United States, as both powers seek to exert their influence in Southeast Asia. For China, the visit is an opportunity to consolidate its ties with the junta and secure its strategic and economic interests in Myanmar. The visit also highlights the challenges facing ASEAN in addressing the crisis. The bloc's inability to forge a cohesive response reflects its internal divisions and the limits of its non-interference principle. The crisis has exposed ASEAN's weaknesses and raised questions about its effectiveness in dealing with regional challenges. The visit underscores the growing importance of human rights as a foreign policy issue. The crisis in Myanmar is a stark reminder that the fight for democracy and human rights is far from over. It is a call to action for the international community to stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar and demand an end to the violence and oppression. We must not allow the junta to normalize its rule or to silence the voices of dissent. We must continue to shine a light on the human rights abuses being committed in Myanmar and hold the perpetrators accountable. We must support the brave individuals and organizations who are risking their lives to resist the junta and to build a more just and democratic future for their country. The struggle for freedom and dignity in Myanmar is a struggle that concerns us all. We must not waver in our support for the people of Myanmar as they strive to reclaim their future. The path ahead for Myanmar remains fraught with challenges and uncertainties. The country is grappling with a complex web of political, economic, and social crises, exacerbated by the military coup and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The international community must remain engaged and committed to supporting the Myanmar people in their quest for peace, justice, and democracy. Dialogue and diplomacy, however difficult, remain the most viable path towards a resolution. Regional actors, particularly ASEAN, must play a more proactive role in facilitating talks between the junta and the opposition. China, with its considerable influence over the regime, has a responsibility to use its leverage to push for a peaceful settlement. The international community must also prioritize humanitarian assistance to alleviate the suffering of the Myanmar people. The road to recovery and reconciliation in Myanmar will be long and arduous, but the resilience and determination of the Myanmar people offer a glimmer of hope for a brighter future.